Hello, I'm Paul Kennedy. I'm the host of a show on CBC called Ideas.
Program on ideas on the CBC, and I'm delighted to be here to host this event, an event that I think is really important, the Social Science and Humanities Research Council Impact Awards. I often say that I'm a broadcaster, and a broadcaster is something that you all imagine as somebody who stands behind a microphone and throws their voice out, or stands behind a camera and throws their voice out. Broadcasting actually has a much more radical definition, and that is broadcasting comes from people sowing seeds. Broadcasting was a way you sowed seeds to plant them. And I do think that's my job, but the reason I'm here today is that I think that's your job too. As researchers in this country or anywhere, you have a responsibility to take the seeds and plant them. And that's why the Impact Awards, I think, are such a brilliant idea, and why this is such a natural fit for me to be here today. So I think it's a perfect match, and I'm proud to be part of it this morning. I'd like to help welcome those of you who are joining us here at the National Arts Center on this beautiful day. And I also want to welcome those who are viewing this event live on their computer via a live stream. This has been an amazing morning. I attended the first session this morning. People were discussing the kinds of issues and the kinds of research that this country will be facing and that this country will be benefiting from in the years to come. Today I have the pleasure of announcing the winners of the SSHRC Impact Awards in categories like talent, insight, connection, and partnership, as well as the big prize, the grand prize, the gold medal, which is the SSHRC's highest research honor. Les prix Impact visent à souligner.
We want here to underline realize the achievement of people in research and mobilization and knowledge and in awareness activities in human science research.
King of France. And that was at a time when the land that we're on here was controlled and owned, as it is still, not ceded, by the Algonquin peoples. So I've forgotten a lot as I've grown older. The winners of these prizes are selected by a jury from a list of truly exceptional nominees that are submitted by post-secondary institutions from coast to coast. And along with the Impact Award finalists today, we have something that I think is very exciting, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy as much as I will. Some very special guests. These are the winners of this year's Storytellers Challenge, the SSHRC's Research Communications Contest. En janvier dernier,
last January, when in a short presentation, or 300 words, each has told his or her story that show the impact of the of SSHRC on their lives.
Communicators chose these young scholars for their research in communications. And today these rising stars will be sharing with us the presentations that won them the prize. Now, if you are here in the room and interested in tweeting this, I understand that this event is already trending. So if you would like to tweet this event, please use the hashtags SSHRC Storytellers or Récit CRSH. If you're tweeting about the Impact Awards themselves, use these hashtags. Hashtag SSHRC Impact or hashtag Impacts avec un S, CRSH. Please join me now in welcoming to the stage the SSHRC's Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Ted Hewitt.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everybody. Au nom du Conseil de recherche en
On behalf of the SSHRC, I'm very happy to wish you a warm welcome to the second annual event for the Impact Prizes.
Today from across the country at this National Forum on Canada's Future Challenges. As you know, we're here today to recognize several of Canada's top researchers in the social sciences and humanities are research superstars and rising stars. And that's not a word we use very often, and it's really kind of unfortunate that it doesn't figure into sentences about humanities and social sciences researchers. Mais la recherche effectuée par les...
And the research is this research is underlined by SSHRC, and this is sort of research has a lot of impact on the lives of Canadians and people around the world. Take the winners of the Impact Prize, who won the Connection Prize in 2013.
Played a vital role, a key role in the modernization of Canada's Copyright Act. There's also the 2013 Insight Award winner, Marguerite Mackenzie. Professor Mackenzie not only studied the Innu language, but helped create the first Innu English-French dictionary, now being used by teachers and translators across the North. La recherche en sciences humaines subventionnée.
All this research that we fund leads to very important discoveries and have a positive impact on society.
Suite of awards last year, we decided to call them the Impact Awards because these awards demonstrate SSHRC's commitment to developing a culture of excellence in social sciences and humanities research and research training. The competition for these awards is fierce, I want to tell you. Every year, we receive a significant number of high-quality applications following a national nomination process that is extensive and detailed. Notre jury de sélection est composé.
Our jury is made of respected leaders everywhere in Canada and abroad.
Before carefully ranking the finalists and winners and coming together to make their selections. This year's distinguished jury was led by none other than Dr. Sarah Diamond. Sarah, please stand up and be recognized. I would like also to acknowledge the other 3 jury members who are able to join us here today. Anne Dale. Anne, where are you? Anne, thank you. Monsieur Gilles Lavasseur. Gilles, où êtes-vous? Okay, we'll find him later, and we'll parade him in front of you. And Simon Philogène. Simon is here, I know for sure. Simon. Thanks to all of the members of this year's jury for your dedication, your passion, and your hard work. The jury was faced with choosing 5 winners from a long list of extremely talented and noteworthy nominees, as you're going to hear. 11 universities from coast to coast were represented through this year's finalists. To the faculty and staff here today from universities with finalists, we salute you. Dans cette salle, l'excellence, la créativité.
In this room, creativity and competition is not limited to those who will be winning the Impact Prizes. We want to honor the winners of the competition. I Have a Story to Tell.
Contest, which challenges post-secondary students from across Canada to find creative ways to communicate how social sciences and humanities research is affecting our lives, our world, and our future prosperity. The final 5, and this is going to be a real treat, I promise you, the final 5 of Canada's brightest and most creative young minds will be joining us on this stage today. They represent the up-and-coming talent that just might shape Canada's future, the future we're talking about today at this conference. We'll be launching the next round in December, so please stay tuned and do encourage colleagues, friends, and students to participate in this particular contest this year. Merci encore d'être.
Again, thank you for being with us this afternoon to honor the finalists of the competition I Have a Story to Tell, and to recognize the 5 winners of our Impact Prize.
Are now ready to go. Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Ted. This is really going to be an exciting day, and it's going to begin very exciting very soon. But before we have our first storyteller up here, I want to invite you to watch with me a short video of the 25 finalists in the Storytellers contest.
But does your research affect me, or my community, or Canada?
Yes to all of the above.
Help reduce the nation's greenhouse gas emissions.
An especially powerful tool in circumstances when other forms of communication are restricted.
To create noise for social change.
But what we don't know is when they started thinking and acting like us.
Who are the people who are making these risky investments, and why are they doing it?
Many students transition well, but there are also many who struggle.
Same gene pool, eat the same kinds of things, and share the same core cultural values.
People's vote choice is largely determined by feelings.
Performance, privilege, prestige,
isolation,
and
deprivation, fear, uniformity,
that all our characteristics impact the way that society functions.
untreated addiction.
La redistribution de la richesse, housing first.
These words shape and defy the conception.
Something most 17-year-olds don't have to necessarily deal with.
Let's jump right in. The first Storyteller's winner today is originally from Brisbane, Australia. He's a Vanier Scholar, a Liu Scholar, and Technical Director of the University of British Columbia's Database in Religious History. Dans son travail, il explore...
In his work, he tries to see how this culture will have an impact on people and the interplay of the various cultures.
With Krishna.
What are the precursors to a small-scale society becoming a large-scale civilization? Would a war have broken out in Europe if Franz Ferdinand hadn't been assassinated? Would World War II have taken place without Hitler? What can the history of the Roman Empire tell us about the United States today? Scholars have been puzzling over questions such as these for as long as these questions have existed, and they've used a variety of tools and techniques to help uncover the answers. But thanks to SSHRC, they'll soon have access to a new tool that encompasses a staggering and unprecedented breadth of knowledge amenable to the latest statistical and mathematical analyses. My name is Michael Mithakrishna, and I'm the technical director for what we hope will one day be the world's largest quantitative database of history. Now, of course, the very notion of a big data approach to history is controversial. Can history be quantified? Is historical knowledge amenable to statistical analyses? Are there even patterns in history? For some people, the answers to these questions are definite no. But for a rapidly growing group of scholars from both the humanities and social sciences are challenging that notion. Here's how. We've built a database using the latest but most robust open source technologies and the best principles in software engineering. We're building a foundation of knowledge that we hope will bear fruit for decades to come. The core of our design is a unique and powerful way of looking at history. Rather than focus analysis at the level of the individual or group, we have almost 100 experts converting this qualitative knowledge into quantitative data. To do this, experts, 1, answer questions in a numerical or binary way. For example, population size or casualties in a war, but also the presence or absence of oligarchies, or whether wealth was passed down the male or female line. And 2, locating these answers in space and time. We want to know who was living and what they were doing anywhere on the globe at any time in history. Now, of course, all of space and time is a little bit daunting, so we're starting with a slightly less but still incredibly ambitious project, creating a database of religious history, beginning with China, but already expanding across the globe as dozens more experts contribute their expertise. If you're a historian and as excited as we are for this new tool in the study of history, we'd love to hear from you. If you hold the purse strings to ensure that projects such as these continue to get funded, I'd love to chat to you. Actually, even if you're just a little curious, get in touch to find out how you can get involved or learn more. Oops. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. But perhaps those who understand the patterns of the past or those who can improve the future. I'd like to thank SSHRC for supporting Canada in research for a better life and a better tomorrow.
Thank you, Michael. Fasten your seatbelts. We've only just begun. Now, moving on to the first Impact Award, which is the Talent Award. The Talent Award recognizes outstanding achievement by the holder of a SSHRC doctoral or postdoctoral fellowship or scholarship. It goes to a student or a postdoctoral fellow who's demonstrated clear potential to be a future leader, both inside and outside the academic sector. It is, not insignificantly, worth $50,000 in research money. This year's talent finalists are Heather Bliss of the University of Victoria. Heather has a PhD in linguistics from the University of British Columbia and is a postdoctoral fellow at UVic. She's been doing linguistic field work for the past 10 years on the syntax of Blackfoot, which is an endangered and understudied Algonquian language spoken in southern Alberta. She mapped the core grammatical relations of Blackfoot, establishing herself as the leading scholar in Blackfoot linguistics. She focuses on how grammatical particles in Blackfoot reflect on interaction among speakers. Her publications are numerous, especially for a scholar at this stage of her career. She's been nominated for a gold-level Governor General's Academic Medal and was the 2012 UBC 3-minute thesis finalist. The second shortlisted person in the talent category is Kirk Luther of the Memorial University of Newfoundland. Monsieur Luther est étudiant.
He is a student for the PhD in psychology, and he wants to help young people better understand their rights. He is elaborating of a comprehensive version of the relinquishing form, where relinquishing of rights form.
To test whether or not these forms truly do protect the youth. He's a member of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary's Research Committee and a volunteer for the Association for the Defense of the Wrongly Convicted. Luther's previously developed unique partnership programs to ensure police officers use practices guided by hard research. He also works regularly with police forces across the country to share the knowledge that he's gathered through his work. And he's also won Memorial's 3-minute thesis competition. And finally, in this category, Amy Scott of the University of Manitoba. Madame Scott est candidate au doctorat.
She is a PhD student in the Department of Anthropology at the University of Manitoba. Her research deals with markers that chronic stress leaves on old bones. Her data created compared to others will help us establish the key moments in the history of health, the health of mankind.
Hopes to pioneer a new method for chemically detecting stress in archaeological remains and providing new light into the health and well-being of past peoples. This is the equivalent of the moment when I should be asking for the envelope, please. Le lauréat du prix Impact dans la catégorie talent est Kirk.
Kirk Luther is the winner.
Hello. I'm extremely honored to be recognized by SSHRC for this award. I remember being at the awards ceremony last year as a SSHRC storyteller, and I was in awe of the winners of the Impact Awards. And after a lot of hard work and dedication, I get to join them in this honor today. I would like to extend my appreciation to my supervisor and my mentor, Dr. Brent Snook. I would also like to thank Memorial University for their incredible support. But most of all, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to SSHRC for providing support and opportunities for growth during my academic career. Over the past number of years, I've conducted research that has led to positive changes within the criminal justice system. And a large part of ensuring these positive changes is effective knowledge mobilization. That is, sharing my research findings with policymakers and practitioners and calling for action. Receiving the SSHRC Talent Award is invaluable in ensuring that I can effectively share my research findings, and it allows me to continue my goal of working toward improving the criminal justice system. So one sentiment that guides much of my research is to leave the world a better place than when you found it. And I believe that as SSHRC-funded researchers, we have the responsibility to conduct research that helps us to understand the world around us and improve the lives of Canadians. So I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank SSHRC for helping world-class researchers reach their potential, and I'm very grateful to receive this honor today. Thank you. Merci.
Félicitations, Monsieur Luther.
Congratulations, Mr. Luther. For the next storyteller, we'll be talking about the youth.
Helping empower young people who have been unfairly stereotyped. In 2013, he became involved with Assets Coming Together for Youth, or ACT, and a SSHRC-funded Community Universe Research Alliance. Il fait des études spécialisées.
He's doing his BA in psychology at York University. He's interested in epidemiology, the theory of power and persuasion, as well as the elimination of obstacles that hamper the road to services such as health and education.
Who is our storyteller?
Boxed in, closed, shut in. Boxed in by what people think of the color of your skin and the price of your sneakers. Boxed in by what people think of your zip code, the neighborhood that you grew up in, the high school that you go to. Boxed in by what the media expects of you, your peers expect of you, and the unnecessary compromises you make about what you're capable of. Boxed in by misconceptions people have about your faith, about your culture, of how it falls short of modern ideals, of Western ideals. Youth in the Jane and Finch community of Toronto have been subject to extensive negative public discourse that brands these youth as problems. The Act for Youth project and its offshoot Noise bring together an alliance of community stakeholders and researchers in a youth-focused program. Research-informed models are used to enhance the academic success of youth from the community through engaged learning opportunities that emphasize civic engagement and social well-being. Youth and social work student fellows work together in small groups on projects that are actually relevant to the community. This year, social action projects have included everything from media and arts-based campaigns, creating care packages for local shelters, as well as workshops for youth on employment. When working directly with the youth, you can sense that an incredible gap exists between what the public expect of these youth and what these youth are actually capable of. This same discrepancy exists in how youth are perceived in priority neighborhoods across Canada. The project has helped create new pathways to education, help these youth create feelings of belonging in their community, and most importantly, it's helped these youth expand their notions of possibility. So what can we do? What's our role in all of this? Do we accept the status quo? Do we accept the as is? Or do we help youth box out? Box out, open, shouting out. Box out with the advantages that their heritage can bring them, with how high they can fly no matter what sneakers they're wearing. Box out with renewed expectations for these youth and their peers. Release them from the belief that there's special limits for them and what they can achieve. Help them write their own story and reject the existing consensus. Box out. Thank you.
Thank you, Venice. Merci. A few of this year's judges in the storytelling category are actually in the room with us, and maybe we could ask them to stand up and we can give them our gratitude. Sherry Graydon, an author, journalist, and founder of Informed Opinions. Antonia Maori, president of the Federation for the Humanities and Social Sciences. Et Pierre Normand,
Vice President of Exterior Relations and Communications at the Canadian Innovation Foundation. Let's move on now to the Connection Prize. This Connection Award goes with an award of $50,000 for research. The Connection Award aims to underline the circulation and exchange of research results amongst academics. It is given to someone who can develop a vast community through the application of his work and research. And the finalists are
Elizabeth Dunn of the University of British Columbia. Dunn is a psychology professor who says that Canadian society is ready for a policy of happiness. Dr. Dunn is one of the leading researchers working in a growing field of study demonstrating that happiness can be accurately measured. Ces études nous ont appris.
Those studies have taught us that using someone else's money.
Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending. Second nominee in the Connection category is Maureen G. Reid of the University of Saskatchewan. Plus de 2 millions Canadiens vivent dans...
More than 2 million Canadians live in the reserves of biosphere, but very few realize that those regions are important on the ecological aspect because the economic growth depends on the fragile balance that we have with protecting the environment.
This is on governance and sustainability in UNESCO biosphere reserves. As a leader of a 3-year partnership with the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, using workshops, YouTube videos, and guidebooks, Dunn is helping to raise the profile of and also to strengthen the effectiveness of biosphere reserves. And thirdly, Nico Trocmé of McGill University. Monsieur Trocmé est un ardent défenseur.
Mr. Trocmé is a strong defender of the youth. He works with the social school of McGill University. He's one of the main researchers in Canada in terms of child well-being. He has conceived tools to share knowledge that give access to many research results for social workers. He is the author of a new series of Canadian studies on violence towards children, on child neglect, and on the placement of children out of their household. Those studies teach us that the children from First Nations are twice as likely to be placed out of their household than other children. These are the only sources of national statistics for child services in Canada.
Envelope, please. The winner of the 2014 Impact Award for Connection goes to Nico Trocmé.
La semaine dernière, nous avons présenté à l'Assemblée.
Last week, we presented at the National Assembly some data on the efficiency of the Quebec system for youth protection. Upon consultation of our data, the Ministry of Social Services and Child Care promised a law that will reorganize the structure of those services. Furthermore, our data on overrepresentation of Aboriginal children in the placement has played an important role in our plea to the Canadian Tribunal, and Mrs. Blackstock mentioned this morning. Here are two practical examples of the impact that the SSHRC subsidies can have directly on the practices in Canada. These data come from research partnerships that our team has developed over more than 15 years. They put the statistical tools and the research tools of the university to the use of Aboriginal organizations in the communities. In the name of these partners and in the name of our research team, I'd like to thank the SSHRC for having given priority to these partnerships, the Royal Bank for their support to our analysis infrastructure, and the McGill University for being open to participative and community research. Thank you. Congratulations.
In 2009, the next storyteller began working with vulnerable children and youth in the foster care system. She recently completed her master's degree in social work at Carleton University, and through her research, she's seeking to improve policies and support programs for vulnerable children and youth in foster care. Please join me now in welcoming the next storyteller, Robin McEwen.
Be a clicker up here for me. Okay, so hello, thank you for the lovely introduction. My name is Robin McEwen, and I just finished my master's in social work at Carleton University. But I used to work in the field of social work in Vancouver, and a big part of my job was to find foster homes for children and youth who can no longer live with their families. Now, some kids are easier to find homes for than others, but today I want to tell you about one girl. We'll call her Carly. And she's what we in the field call a hard-to-house youth. Now, Carly was a 17-year-old Aboriginal girl. She had fetal alcohol syndrome, which gave her significant limitations to her activity of daily living. She struggled with addiction, and she lived in 10 foster homes and group homes since she came into care at the age of 13. Now, most of her homes were set up as temporary placements. And so here her care team was, yet again, sitting around a table talking about finding Carly a new home. Now, a care team is essentially a social support network comprised of paid professionals. I was on Carly's care team to help her find a new foster home. She had a mental health worker to help her deal with her history of abuse, an Aboriginal worker, someone who helps her stay connected to her culture. She had group home staff, the people who get her to and from school every day, help her with her homework. So she has a big care team, a lot of people around her. She walks into this room, sits down at the table, and says, you know what? I'm 17 now, and when I turn 19, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone. I'm alone in this world, and I need you guys to find me a family. It's kids like Carly who made me realize the importance of researching the devastating effects of youth aging out of the foster care system and having all social supports fall away. Carly knew that whatever home I found for her, in 2 years, she'd begin her transition to adulthood, she'd have to move yet again, and she'd prepare to lose the only social supports that she knows, and that's her care team. Now, there's a few things we know about youth raised in the foster care system. Less than half of them graduate from high school. Close to half of them become homeless at some point in their lives. And over 70% of youth raised in foster care come into contact with the criminal justice system. What my research seeks to unpack is the social support network of these youth after they leave foster care. Who do they call in times of need? Who can they turn to for support? For the past year, I've been interviewing former youth in care to get their side of the story about what this experience has been like for them. And what my participants are telling me largely is that they feel they're expected to rely largely on themselves. Now, youth raised in foster care have the most tumultuous upbringings often. They have to move a lot. And yet we expect them to be independent sooner than youth raised in biological family contexts. We need to change the system in place right now. We need to work towards finding relationships of permanency and placements of permanency for youth raised in foster care so they have a better chance at a successful future after they leave the foster care system. Thank you.
Merci, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
The beginning about broadcasting being sowing seeds that are planted and develop, I think we're seeing lots of evidence of that already here today. Next up is the Impact Award for Partnership. It's also worth $50,000 of research money. The Partnership Award is given to the formal partnership that through mutual cooperation and shared intellectual leadership and resources has demonstrated impact and influence within and or beyond the social sciences and humanities research community. For the Partnership Award, the nominees must be the project director. Funds must be used within 3 years to extend the research, knowledge mobilization, or research-related activities being recognized. The nominees this year are Wendy Craig of Queen's University. Wendy's the co-director, along with her scientific co-director, Dr. Deborah Pepler from York University, of the Promoting Relationships and Eliminating Violence Network, or PrevNet. She's a leading expert on bullying and its effects. She spent over 20 years studying bullying and ways of reducing or eliminating it. And she works in that context with parents and educators across the country. She has, by the way, already appeared on Oprah and has, beyond that, advised Lady Gaga on an anti-bullying project. PrevNet est le fruit du travail.
PrevNet is the fruit of 127 researchers' work, 120 searchers from postgraduate cycle, and many partners. This network brings resources to try and influence public policies and community intervention.
List is Susan McGrath of York University. Dr. McGrath is a professor of social work and has been instrumental in setting up the Refugee Research Network, which is an innovative a model of research partnerships working to improve the well-being of refugees and forced migrants. Le travail de Susan aide à...
Susan's work helps to improve the well-being of refugees and to reinforce the policies and national practices and world practices aimed to ensure their protection. The Refugee Research Network is now recognized as being one of the main research centers on refugees in North America.
And thirdly, Gordon McCout of the University of King's College in Halifax. He's the project director of Situating Science. It's a unique knowledge exchange partnership, and it's actually the first of its kind in Canada. Has a mandate to promote communication and collaboration among humanists and social scientists in the study of science and technology. Gordon helped to organize and support hundreds of collaborations, over 20 conferences, in fact, and workshops, 4 national lecture series, and 6 summer schools. He helped to facilitate the development of 4 new programs of study at partner institutions, and he worked with over 200 supporting and partnering organizations. The envelope again. The 2014 Impact Award for Partnership goes to Wendy Craig.
The good news is I'm not going to sing.
La bonne nouvelle, c'est que je ne...
I want to first by saying I'm receiving this award on behalf of many. I walk with Dr. Deborah Pepler as the co-scientific director of PrevNet. And in our organization, we have 125 researchers across the country and 63 national organizations that work with children and youth. Our goal was to work with our partners to bring science into practice and practice to science, so that we, over the last 7 years, have been developing and working on over 200 projects with our partners to help them promote healthy relationships and prevent bullying. It is probably the greatest impact work that I can ever do and the most rewarding, and I'm truly grateful for the experience. We know that relationships matter. When working with the Public Health Agency, we've helped change their framework and their strategic policy when we discovered that for 23 out of 24 health outcomes and social outcomes and academic outcomes, relationships with parents mattered. Uniquely, relationships with peers mattered, relationships with adults in the neighborhood mattered, and relationships with adults at school mattered. So if I have a message for you today, each of us can go and matter. We can take the time to support children and help them develop the healthy relationship that they need, and each bring our own impact. I would like to thank SSHRC for their outstanding support over the years and their championing of PrevNet over the years. I would also like to thank Queen's University for their ongoing and continuous support, and I'd like to thank and share this award with all of my partners and my colleague, Dr. Pepper Pepler. Thanks so much.
Congratulations, Dr. Craig, and congratulations in both receiving the award and also on the work that you do, for which you deserve thanks as well as congratulations. Our next storyteller is a doctoral candidate at Western University, something of a globetrotter, actually. She's conducted field research in places like Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Haiti. I think she's probably got a lot of frequent flyer points. She studies the ecological and the sociological impacts of the idiom, "You are what you eat." So please join me in welcoming Mary Lynn Steckley.
This is Ari, the heart of this story and my mentor to Haiti. Ari told me, to understand Haiti, you must first recognize that for 300 years of slavery, we were forced to believe that we are inferior. These ideas persist today. The reference point for what is good, he said, is what is white, what is Western. And the international response to the 2010 earthquake largely reinforced these ideas.
Plus encore. Côté, moun après plus croire dans blanc, plus passer ça au te croire.
These ideas influence Haiti's food culture. Haiti is extremely food import dependent. Once diverse diets have been eroded, not only because of drastic trade liberalizations and cheap food imports, but because of the persistent idea that what is Haitian, what is black, what is peasant, is inferior. Ari wanted to see whether these ideas of inferiority influence food choices. Do Haitians value imported foods more than traditional ones? And what effect does this have on food security? I spent 3 years researching in rural Haiti and found that there are stark food hierarchies. Prestigious foods are refined, packaged, foreign foods. Undervalued foods are rural, peasant foods. Cornflakes are better than cassava bread. Spaghetti is considered better than cornmeal, and people prefer imported white crackers to traditional molasses bread, which they say is only for the poor because it looks like horse dung. People even prefer white beans to black, though they're equally priced. My research proves that Ari was right, and that achieving food security in Haiti will require more than just improved farming techniques or irrigation projects. Instead, my research shows that peasant identities and traditional diets must be revalorized. There needs to be a revolution of ideas that dignify peasants and the foods they produce. This is a challenge, but it's not insurmountable, and Ari is already leading the way. Like local food movements in Canada, he is leading a social movement that is gaining strength. He promotes traditional diets across the country and produces television commercials, like this one.
Lundi, ça nous vle.
Mardi, ça nous vle. Mercredi, ça nous vle.
There's a Haitian proverb that says, where your stomach is tied, there your mind is tied too. This positions eating as a political act, and Ari's message is revolutionary. Eating really can be emancipatory. It can spur environmental vibrancy and social equity. But Ari says that this starts with all of us, making conscious decisions to consume foods that dignify producers and give value to local food systems. Thank you.
Merci, Mary Lynn.
Thank you, Mary Lynn.
Now on to the Insight Award. This award recognizes an individual or a team whose project has resulted in a significant contribution to knowledge and understanding about people, societies, and the world. And like the previous awards, it is also worth $50,000 in research money. The nominees this year are Alain G. Gagnon of l'Université de Québec à Montréal. Monsieur Gagnon est professeur titulaire.
Is emeritus teacher at the Political Science Department at UQAM. He is also the founding director of the research group on plurinational societies. The research of the group are on the living together of societies affected by deep diversity. The members of the group say that multinationalism, federalism can bring diversity while favoring dialogue, inclusion, and recognition of individuals' identities and collective identities.
Lemire of the University of Alberta. A history professor and a Henry Marshall Torrey Chair at the University of Alberta, Dr. Lemire draws on artifacts to trace the impact of globalization on a human scale. Her research ranges from the production of cotton to the working of microcredit, from second-hand clothing in the 17th and 18th centuries in Britain to the role of India in shaping fashion. She's a leading researcher in the fields of the history of consumption, of consumer credit, of household management, of second-hand traded clothing, and in the development of the cotton trade on a global scale. Thirdly, Thomas Lemieux of the University of British Columbia. He is a two-time Impact Awards nominee, and he's one of Canada's leading economists. He's an expert in wage inequality. His research looks at the effects of the lack of education on the growing gap between the rich and the poor. C'est un ardent partisan de l'importance d'un diplôme.
He strongly defends the importance of university diploma to prepare students for the current labor market. He is the co-founder of the American Economic Journal of Applied Economics. Last year, he received the Bank of Canada Award Prize. He is also a member of the Royal Society of Canada. The Impact Prize in the Insight category is given to Thomas Lemieux. Thank you very much.
I'm honored to be a recipient of the 2014 Insight Impact Award for my research on the general theme of inequality. Of course, I'm grateful to SSHRC for having supported me throughout my career, starting, yes, with a doctoral scholarship back in the 1980s. As a matter of fact, I first got interested in the inequality issue when I was a graduate student. Back then, I thought it was a perfect example of a topic of great social importance, for which good and rigorous research could also help us understand the issue and suggest what could be done about it. I still believe this today, having found through my work that although different countries are exposed to the same underlying forces of technology, globalization, some societies have been much more successful through a judicious choice of economic and social policy to cope with these issues. My
work is the fruit of a collective effort, so I would like to thank my many colleagues and students that took part in this research over the years. I would also like to thank the Montreal University and UBC, as well as my colleagues in those institutions for their support during my career. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Monsieur Lemieux. Our fifth, and I think sadly final storyteller today holds a master's degree in music composition from McGill University. His research has been published and presented in Canada and internationally. He's also a composer, and in 2014, His composition Isomorphia, which is a composition for orchestra and electronics, was nominated for a Juno Award as Classical Composition of the Year. Please welcome James O'Callaghan.
How can music mean something? This is the question I asked myself when I began my artistic research in composing music using field recordings or sounds from the environment around us. If you'll indulge me, let's listen to a little bit of it now. I strongly believe that all art has the ability to communicate and to impact the society in which it is created. That said, my chosen discipline of music is an historically abstract medium. It might be easy to see how a painting of, say, a still life or a landscape can be representational, but it is possible to communicate the same thing through music. We live in a visual-dominant culture, so it's not as immediate to see how a sound-based art form can communicate something. Spoken or sung words, of course, can be representational, but can sounds themselves be meaningful? If we hear the sound of a bird, we might have a corresponding image of a bird in our head. But what if we hear something that's perhaps not quite a bird, but is still somehow very bird-like in its character? Would we still connect it to that same image of a bird? And how would our understanding of the sound change in its new context? To look at these questions from an aesthetic perspective, I created a piece of music for orchestra and recorded sounds, and that's what we're hearing now. The piece is called Isomorphia, meaning same shape, and it features field recordings taken from across Canada of natural and urban environments. In the piece, they appear both in their original exposed forms and also through transformations into instrumental copies. Using software-assisted analysis, I transcribed the sounds for instruments and placed them in a context where the source of the sound is always in flux, changing from something real and recognizable to something abstracted from that. So, through this piece of music and others like it, perhaps we have the means to find a new way to listen to the sounds in our environment and maybe even communicate something. Thank you for listening.
I have a feeling that someday that young man may be back in the National Arts Centre to witness the world premiere of one of his works. We come now to the gold medal, which is SSHRC's highest research honor, and it's worth 100,000 piastres, $100,000. It's awarded to an individual whose sustained leadership, dedication, and originality of thought have inspired students and colleagues alike. The gold medal recognizes achievements in research that have significantly advanced understanding in the recipient's research field. The
exceptional quality of this research, the fallout of the work, as well as the effort to communicate the fruit of the work, has contributed a lot to the enrichment of the Canadian society, as well as the social activity, economic and intellectual activity in Canada and abroad.
This year's gold medal to Beverly Diamond of Memorial University of Newfoundland. Dr. Diamond is a Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in Ethnomusicology and an internationally renowned scholar. She's credited as the founder of the modern discipline of ethnomusicology in Canada. Beverly Diamond played a central role in developing ethnomusicology as a socially and academically relevant research discipline in Canada. She established undergraduate and graduate programs at Queen's University, York University, and finally at Memorial University, Newfoundland. Elle est fermement convaincue.
She is strongly convinced that there is a link between music and identity stakes and social changes, specifically for women and Aboriginal cultures in Canada. Her work on Aboriginal work go from Inuit traditions and First Nations in terms of traditional songs to the Sami of Lapanya, and she works on the access to music and protection.
Memorial University's Center for the Study of Music, Media, and Place. The center serves as a central point of electronic access for sound archives in Canada, in Atlantic Canada, and beyond. Congratulations to this year's gold medal winner, Beverly Diamond.
I think James and I would agree that one thing about music is that it is inevitably relational. The kind of work that I do has depended on a lot of relations. It's depended on generosity and trust from many, many people. Musicians, culture bearers, Aboriginal elders, cultural actors of many sorts. It's been especially important because of the subjects that I have been studying mostly during the last 4 decades. I've tended to gravitate my research to institutions or places that in fact have troubled colonial histories, places in which settler and Aboriginal contact has often been very complex and very unequal and lopsided. Places such as museum collections, which on one hand have their own backstories that are not always ones that we hear about, and on the other hand, collections that can have new meaning for the future in Aboriginal communities. Other things that have interested me that are similarly very complex are, of course, the history of Indian residential schools that everyone is thinking about more now that we have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But again, expressive arts, I think, have played a huge role, not only at the schools themselves. The soundscapes of the schools were both systems of assimilation and oppression, as well as at times ways that children could make some sense of the terrible things that were happening there. So I've also gravitated in my research to areas that are contested, areas such as the relationship between Indigenous protocols and such things as copyright law, which takes a very different kind of approach to the responsibilities of creative activity. And also to recording studios. What does it mean, for instance, if an Indigenous woman goes to make a recording and a sound engineer has a very different idea of what a female voice should sound like? So I thank everyone who has given me that trust and that generosity over many decades. I'd also like to thank my colleagues at the Research Center for Music, Media and Place at Memorial University, along with many, many people in Newfoundland and Labrador, where over the last 13 years, they have helped create that center as a place for collaborative research between community and university researchers. It's been a very good ride. And finally, and of course, entirely the main point of today, I want to thank SSHRC for their support over the length of my career, but especially for this unbelievable personal honor, but also for all the support that SSHRC gives researchers in the arts and humanities and social sciences. I think that research support has never been more important than the present moment, which I think of as something of an ironic moment. It's ironic in that researchers in SSHRC disciplines, especially arts and humanities, but also social sciences, I think, are inevitably and increasingly called upon to justify the utility of the work that we do. But at the same time, we know that people all around the world recognize that expressive culture is a very powerful tool for telling neglected and hidden histories, for building healthy communities, and also for generating global attention to issues of environmental and social concern. So thank you, SSHRC, for enabling all of the wonderful things that you do across the country, and my gratitude particularly for this huge honor today. Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Diamond, and thank you for that rousing call to arms as well. Congratulations also, obviously, to Memorial University of Newfoundland, which had 2 of the 5 winners this year. I take some pride in that. I spend every summer in Newfoundland. In my wallet, more important than my driver's license or any credit card, is a library card to the Memorial University Library, the Queen Elizabeth Library. I had nothing to do with the winning votes, but there are, however, several finalists in the room. I think we should recognize them if they could stand, and we could give us our appreciation, give them our appreciation for the work that they've done, even though it didn't win the prize this year. Gordon McQuat, Amy Scott, Maureen Reed, Heather Bliss, and Susan McGrath are all in the room. Just so you know, the SSHRC will be receiving nominations for next year's winners at the beginning of the new year, in January of the new year. And the next edition of J'ai une histoire will be beginning in December of this year. So on your mark, get set, go. I want to thank you all for indulging me in my horrendous French. It was a real pleasure for me to be here, and I do think it is a very important thing that you're all participating in here today. The celebration of things that are important in this country, so important that in some ways the survival of this country and the planet depends on the work that's being done by people who are in this room. So thank you very much for being here. To all the winners, the finalists, and the storytellers, I want to please congratulate you from my heart, and also tell you that just after we conclude this session, we'll be meeting in the mezzanine just outside the door there for more photos. For people who are staying on, they'll be restriking or reassembling this room for us to use later in the afternoon, so that the tables will be removed and chairs will be put up, but you can stay here and meal talk amongst yourselves for about 30 minutes or so until the next session will begin. We'll be back here at 2 o'clock for the forum's 3rd session, which is Convergence, Levering Thought, Leadership Across Sectors. And the Governor General will be arriving in, I think, a little more than an hour from now. Thank you all. It has been a great day.